The interruption and resumption of revelation. After the first revelation, no further revelation was sent down for several months. This period is known as Fatra al-Wa'i, or interruption of revelation. Scholars differ on its duration. Some say it lasted 6 months, while others suggest it could have been up to 3 years. During this period, the prophet remained saddened and anxious. He wondered, "Has my Lord become displeased with me?" The famous scholar, Hafiz ibn Hajar, explains that the temporary cessation of revelation had a purpose: to allow the prophet to overcome the fear that had overtaken him, to create in his heart a longing and eagerness for the return of revelation. Fath al-Bari, Volume 1, page 27. Once this goal was achieved and the prophet began eagerly anticipating revelation, Allah sent down another revelation. Seerah of the Prophet Muhammad. The resumption of revelation. The prophet narrates, "I spent a month in retreat at the cave of Hira. When my retreat was completed, I descended. As I reached the valley, I heard a voice calling me. I looked to my right, there was nothing. I looked to my left, there was nothing. I looked ahead and behind me, there was nothing. Then I raised my gaze toward the sky, and I saw the same angel, Jibreel, who had come to me in Hira. He was sitting on a throne between the sky and the earth. Upon seeing this sight, I was overcome with fear and immediately rushed home to Khadijah. I said, 'Cover me, and pour cold water over me.' She covered me with a blanket and poured cold water over me to calm me down." The revelation of Surah al-Mudaththir. At that moment, Allah revealed the following verses of Surah al-Mudaththir. Surah al-Mudaththir, 1-5. Translation: O you who are covered in a cloak, arise and warn, and proclaim the greatness of your Lord, and keep your garments clean, and shun all filth, idolatry. This event occurred before prayer was made obligatory. After this, revelations began to come continuously. Sahih Bukhari, Tafsir of Surah al-Mudaththir. From prophethood to messengership. With the revelation of Surah al-Alaq, the prophet was granted prophethood. With the revelation of Surah al-Mudaththir, he was appointed as a messenger, meaning he was now commanded to convey the message of Islam to the people. These verses marked the beginning of his mission. They contained a divine call from Allah, commanding the prophet to rise from comfort and take on the great responsibility of calling people to Islam. O you who are wrapped in a cloak, arise and warn. It was as if Allah was saying, "This life is not for comfort. Now is the time to spread the message. Sleep and rest are over. Now begins the struggle, sacrifice, and hardship." Hearing this call, the prophet rose and never rested again. For over 20 years, he dedicated himself completely to the mission of spreading Allah's message. He never sought personal comfort. Rather, his life became a continuous struggle for the sake of Islam. May Allah reward the Prophet on behalf of all of humanity in the best way. Ameen. The different forms of revelation. Revelation was sent to the Prophet in various ways. In Sahih Bukhari, it is narrated, Sayyidah Aisha reported that once Harith bin Hisham asked the Prophet, "How does revelation come to you?" The Prophet replied, "Sometimes I hear a sound like the ringing of a bell, and this form of revelation is the hardest on me. Once it ends, I remember exactly what was said. Sometimes, the angel appears before me in the form of a man and speaks to me, and I remember what he says." The intensity of revelation. Sayyidah Aisha narrates, "I witnessed revelation descending upon the Prophet on extremely cold days. Yet when the revelation ended, his blessed forehead would be drenched in sweat." In another narration, she describes, when revelation would descend upon the Prophet, his breathing would become heavy, his blessed face would turn pale like a dried palm leaf, his front teeth would shiver due to the intensity, and sweat would pour from him like pearls. At times, revelation was so intense that if it came while he was riding a camel, the weight of the revelation would cause the camel to kneel down. Once, revelation descended while the Prophet was resting his thigh on Zayd bin Thabit's thigh, and Zayd felt such a heavy burden that he feared his leg would be crushed. The audible sound of revelation. Sometimes, those around the prophet could sense the revelation. Sayyidina Umar reported, when revelation descended upon the prophet, a sound like the buzzing of bees could be heard near his face. Forms of revelation. Hikap 1 through a mysterious sound, like a ringing bell. This was the most intense form of revelation. The prophet would hear a sound, and once it ended, the words of revelation would be imprinted in his heart. Hikap 2 through an angel in human form. Sometimes, Angel Jibreel would appear in the form of a human and deliver Allah's message. He often took the form of Dihya al-Kalbi, a well-known companion. Hikap 3 through Jibreel in his original form. This only happened 3 times in the Prophet's lifetime. When the Prophet wished to see Jibreel in his original form, during the night of Ascension, Miraj. At the beginning of prophethood, in Mecca, a Jayad. The third incident has weaker authentication. 4 through true dreams. Before Quranic revelation began, the Prophet would see true dreams. Whatever he saw in his dream would come true as clearly as the morning light. 5 directly into his heart, Naf Fayawru. Sometimes, Jibreel would inspire words directly into the Prophet's heart. The Prophet said, Jibreel, inspired in my heart that no soul will die until it receives its complete sustenance. So seek your livelihood in a lawful manner. Shu'ab al-Aman, Hadith number 1190. Direct conversation with Allah without an angel. Similar to how Allah spoke directly to Prophet Musa, he also spoke to the Prophet during the Miraj, ascension. This is when the command of Salah, prayer, was given. Zad al-Ma'ad, Volume 1, page 18, Ibn al-Qayyim. 7 Seeing Allah without a veil, disputed opinion. Some scholars mention a 7th form, where Allah directly addressed the Prophet without a veil. However, there has been scholarly debate over whether this actually occurred. Conclusion. Revelation was an intense, divine experience that transformed the world forever. The Prophet endured great physical and emotional strain during this process, but he bore it with patience and perseverance. These different forms of revelation highlight the unique and miraculous nature of the divine messages he received. May Allah send peace and blessings upon our beloved Prophet, who bore this responsibility with such dedication. Ameen.